in the truck, you gonna stand up. Rep the Midwest, get it hype, this the ramp up. Ay, the ramp up, ramp up. Never hit the brakes, break it down day to day. Show the people what it takes. The ramp up, ramp up, the ramp up.
All right. Welcome to the ramp up. We're on episode 9. We have a fun one today. Our first shipper focused spotlight, and couldn't have picked a better one. We have Neha Soi and Macy Chambers from BERO Brewing. Been an awesome customer of ours, and just wanted to get on and pick your brains a little how things are going. How are things going? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be on it. We're excited to share a little bit about BERO and go down memory lane. Things have been really great. We launched last October, so we're just about coming to our 1-year anniversary. We've seen a lot of buzz. We've had a lot of press, which has been exciting. We're partnered with Tom Holland from Spider-Man, and he's really involved. He's really passionate about this. He tastes every single beer. He comes up with names. He looks at every single color like this is his baby. And so it's been really fun for us to get to work with him to bring this to life. And we've launched globally, actually. We're in the US and in the UK with more to come. And so it's been an exciting couple months, or I guess almost a year now, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, we've had a fun time helping you guys with some of these rollouts, but I feel super loyal to the brand already, and the beer's great. So that's a good start too. But I know Brian has a very hard-hitting question for both you guys that we want to get to the bottom to here. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, really big one here to start. But how cool is Tom Holland?
Macy, you want to go first?
He's great, very cool, but very down to earth, and like Neha said, very involved in the business. So this isn't just a company that has his name on it. He's involved, which is awesome, but great to work with.
Yeah, we've gotten to spend a lot of time with him and his family, which has been pretty cool. The launch party, his whole entire family came out, all his friends came out. It was really funny. I actually was carrying around a sample can of our Double Tasty, which is our newest SKU that just launched. We were trying to figure out colors. We had an orange color on there that we were trying to dial in. And this name Double Tasty, which it reminds me of like a Big Mac. So, or like your In-N-Out Double Tasty burger. So I was like, this is so interesting. Anyways, him and his friends are talking, and they saw me with the can. They're like, can we see it? I'm like, sure. I walk over, they're looking at the can, and they just start cracking up, like full blown belly, laughing so hard. And I guess Double Tasty is inside joke with all of him and his friends. And it was really funny to see that like come to life. And now we have all grown to love the name Double Tasty because it's very reminiscent to Tom, all of his friends, their jokes, and it just feels very relatable. And so it was really just a funny moment of Tom and just like how cool he is. He's just kind of a normal guy that really just cares about his people and his family, and just awesome to be around.
Is that kind of spilled over into the culture you guys are creating as well? I know it can be pretty. I want to also get into how demanding it probably is with a startup like this, but just kind of curious your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a big part of it. When I first started, it was just 3 of us. It was me, our brewmaster, and John, our CEO, and then Tom. And I think we had a lot of conversations around how do we do this, right? We had all come from past experience, and we can share a little bit about our backgrounds, but come from different startups, and we were like, okay, what did we like and what didn't we like, and how do we make this a place where people want to be? And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've kind of carried throughout is Tom's passion and energy, and just like love for the world and what he's doing. I think it's like so important, and that's kind of how all of us are. Like, we're here because we actually love doing it. And yes, startup is hard, don't get me wrong, but there's a sense of balance that I think is so important that you don't really see at a lot of other startups. And I think that's something we've done like really, really well, is to be able to work hard and also have this balance to spend time with family and friends. That's just equally as important. I'm sure you guys know in the startup as well, it does take a lot of time and energy, but it is important to be able to do both.
Yeah, he said one of the things we're most proud of so far is almost 2 years in, we've never turned down someone's PTO request. And like at the stage, it's, that's one of our more proud accomplishments. But
I think that's a really great example. That's exactly it though. Like our last startup that we were at, PTO was like kind of unheard of. You don't talk about it. Like, yes, we all had it, but it wasn't something you do. And it was like, if you took a day, it was like this big deal. And here it's like, no, we need to build this in a way that you can go do that and do both. And the reality of it is for us at least, and I'm not sure if this is how you guys feel, but I would imagine it's the same as like when you hire experience, I think you're able to do that to some extent. So we've been able to build processes from day one that support someone being able to go out for 3 days and the business doesn't crumble. I think, when I did this the first time around, I don't know if I had those processes in place or knew what I was doing to be able to do that. So we needed everyone all the time. And so that's been a really nice unlock.
Pretty similar to kind of how we built things too, right?
Yeah, that was kind of like our strategy going into it. To make sure that you don't really have to micromanage or oversee. You kind of know what you're getting, and obviously there's still a level of like coaching and making sure that everyone feels like they're rowing in the same direction. But it's a little different when you have a bunch of green, fresh out of college, need to hold their hand to start. But on that note, I guess, with talking about experience and your guys' experience in the past, and maybe you do want to just give a little background on your past stops and kind of your journey so far.
Sure. Macy, you want to go first and then I can close out?
Sure. So have some corporate experience. So started my career at Mars Pet Care, where I was first introduced into the freight world, then was at Central Garden and Pet, and then previous to BERO was at Lemon Perfect, where I met Neha, but really delved into the startup world and owning more of the freight piece holistically. So.
Great. Yeah. I found Macy on LinkedIn. It was my best LinkedIn message I've ever sent. And I'm so grateful. And it's been awesome. I think, similar to her, my background was corporate too. I spent about 10 years in corporate, started in aerospace, really built like foundational skills with people from the Air Force, military, like really learned logistics, and then had a fun short little stint at Coyote Logistics. I was really looking for something fun and different. So shout out to Coyote and Rich. Obviously, that's where we became friends. So it's very cool to see this come full circle. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but did that for a little bit, learned all the things I like about freight and all the things I don't like about freight. So that was helpful. And then from there went on to Starbucks and really kind of immersed myself in food and beverage supply chain. So I was at Starbucks for a couple of years and then went on to do Taco Bell International and launched Taco Bells internationally around Southeast Asia, which was cool. And then kind of went to L'Oreal for a short stint and did cosmetics. And then at that point felt ready to jump into startup. I was employee number 4 at Lemon Perfect and really built that operations from the ground up, learned a lot. That was probably the hardest 5 years I've ever had. Just kind of figuring things out and what that looks like and what does startup mean and how do you build an operations from scratch. And then came over to BERO, and it's been really awesome to take what we learned from LP and kind of build it from the ground up here and do 50% of the things differently and keep what worked and improve on what didn't, and then brought Macy over a couple months later, and we've been kind of building it ever since. So it's been really cool to have that experience. And I think you guys know that too. When you hire people that we've been able to accelerate and really build a network of really strong suppliers out of the gate. So we don't have to practice. Finding you guys was a huge, huge win. I left it in the hands of Macy, but it was very exciting to see that come to life. And I think we've been able to do that a few times to really build such like a great supply chain network.
I'm really curious to hear both of your opinions on kind of the early days with getting BERO started. And I mean, I have to imagine there's just like a ton of planning at first and that early execution. Like, what did that look like? How long did it take to get everything off the ground? Like, was it frustrating at times? Like, I can't imagine the different hoops you had to jump through just to get this all going so you could finally ship product.
I'm laughing, and we're both laughing because it was a total shit show, for lack of a better word, in the beginning. And we're like, we've done this before. This shouldn't be this hard, whatever, right? It always is. It's a new product. Everything's changing. You have an idea. Marketing comes in. They want to do something different, blah, 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 right? So on and so forth. So the first 8 months, like we were head down. I would say the first few months I was alone. I realized I really needed help. I needed an expert. I was messaging her before she even joined, being like, okay, how would we do this? Let's build this. Pretend you're here. Can you help me do this? Knowing that I was going to get her eventually. And we really built every piece really methodically. And I think that's what took so long. We were so head down trying to make sure we had like our SKUs built correctly, our infrastructure, our systems. Like NetSuite was a really big decision that we made to do day one, things like that. which was chaos when we first started. But now, being a year out, it has proven to be the best things we ever did for ourselves. So we're laughing because it was total chaos.
And I think one thing we always say is we have the experience of what we learned at Lemon Perfect and just from our previous roles. So what can we do to start at BERO to be successful for the growth? And so it's made it probably a little bit more hectic by just building out some of the processes. But as we continue to grow, it's already shown that it's been worth it in so many different ways.
Yeah, I can't really speak to exactly how it is on your end, but I'm sure it's very similar. Like the wins feel massive on the scale. Like been part of larger organizations, and you're excited when things are going good. But you know, when you're there from the beginning, and it's just ground up idea on a napkin to actually, you know, out there in the market and having success, it's pretty fun. Wouldn't equate the two exactly because it's very, very different structures in the startup, but I can imagine, you know, for how quickly you guys have grown, you're feeling a lot of successes and celebrating a lot of wins every day.
I think the biggest win was when our first case actually made it to a retailer. We were like, oh my God, we did it right. The product was produced. We had the right carriers. We got it there. Nothing's damaged. Like, phew, you know, and I think that was like one of the biggest wins to know, okay, we did it. We can do it again and again once it's done the first time.
Question out of curiosity, is a non-alcoholic beer, is that regulated very similarly to alcoholic beer? And I mean, was that frustrating too, I imagine, being like, this actually isn't alcoholic, but having to deal with that?
Yeah, so each state, it's regulated different, which is really fun. But for most of the states, it's considered the same that a beer beverage would be considered. So, but finding out all the different state regulations and what all needs to be done pre-shipping it was a fun feat that we got to conquer.
We have a massive matrix state by state, and it changes and is very dynamic. But what the output of that really became is that we have a network of like 250 distributors. So we're shipping all across the country. The amount of complexity that it brought, you know, I've done beer in my past life, but this was like a next level of complexity around getting every state, the territories, et cetera, and what that looks like. So, you know, once again, you know, we brought our experience, but also finding the right partners that can support was really important to us because we knew that the complexity was only get bigger as we scaled across the country.
You mentioned kind of your background and some of the mistakes or some of the struggles you had when Lemon Perfect got off the ground, and obviously they're massive now too. What, you know, if you could go back and change things, you're speaking maybe to other shippers who are in a similar boat. Like, what are a couple of the main lessons you learned in that process?
That's a good question. I'll go first, Macy, and then you can go after. I think in general, and maybe Macy, you could talk more specifically around freight. But for me, I think one is setting up the system structure from day one, I would have done. And I think that was one thing that we made a decision at BERO to do. So like it made it a little more tedious up front right now. But the challenges that we faced at LP when we were in massive scale really quickly, then with also trying to build the infrastructure was really challenging and almost didn't work. And so I think if I could do that all over again, I would. I think making sure you have a really strong supply base. I think we ran into some challenges. We obviously were doing it through COVID. There was a lot of like unforeseen circumstances that were happening as well. But I think trying to navigate and understanding that from day one would have been helpful. So that for me was something coming into BERO that I wanted to like truly ensure that we had. And then really building out a strong S&OP process from day one, specifically for us, like sales and operations planning, inventory management, and then all the way to the last mile. Like that is so important. And we built that and refined that over the years at LP. Being able to start that from day one at BERO has been like truly, truly industry changing, I think, and really beneficial for us. So those would probably be my top three. Mace, yours might be a little bit different based on your focus.
No, I think to kind of carry on from your first one that you called out of just systems, I think one thing that's been great on the transportation side here at BERO is we started with a TMS system. And so we wanted to make sure that all of our 2025 data was in a TMS. And so to have that year one is amazing. And it's something that we looked at LP, but we were just keeping everything together on a Google Doc, which is fine. And we still use a Google Doc here as well to track some of our shipments, but to have all the data within a TMS system that we can just pull, everybody can have access to it, and it's a live look as to where our freight is really valuable. And the reporting that we can get from it is great.
It's a really good point too. I think one thing that brought us was credibility as well. I think from a shipper standpoint, often when you have a board or you have people looking at what you're doing, to be able to whether you're quoting or have different carriers for different lanes or whatever it may be, your network, to be able to do that for every single load and have that data and visibility into it, I think is really important. And so for us, it's been huge because we can say, our partners are X and X and they do 80% of our freight, and here's why, and you can explain it. I think for me that brought so much credibility to our team, and to be able to do that from year one is really unique.
I think it's fun talking to people on the shipper side, just to hear about, I mean, how involved supply chain is in everything, but how much a lot of leadership of different companies don't know about supply chain because it's so intricate and all the different parts. Has that been like a learning experience for some of your leadership? Or are they folks that have come from like this kind of background where they understand like some of the nuances in supply chain?
That's funny you say that. I really think COVID changed it to some extent. I think people don't know as much, but I think because of COVID, they were forced to learn a little bit more about the importance of supply chain. And I think that's probably across the board, because obviously that became like a screeching halt. And if you didn't understand your supply chain or you didn't have certain things, you were in trouble. So I will say, I think our CEO is sales focused. That's his background, but he's really interested in operations. And I think that's been really cool for us to come to the table and say, here's the things we want to do. And here's why. And he's really supportive of it. I'll give you a great example of NetSuite. It's a pretty expensive ERP system that typical companies don't really start until year 3 to 5. We came up with some unique idea, unique approach, positioned it to NetSuite, asked them to support us. They did. And I went to John and I said, hey, I really think this is the right thing to do. It's unique. No one's really done it, but I think it's going to set us up for success. And he was fully supportive. So I think that's really key, is that support.
Yeah, you mentioned credibility on your end, and I agree with that. We're a smaller outfit, but we like to pride ourselves on at least having enough of the capabilities that you wouldn't understand that we're smaller than some of the big brokerages or suppliers out there. When you guys have carriers, I'm sure you get hit up all the time. Macy, your people reaching out, trying to see if they can give you a quote, I'm sure. Like, what are you looking for from a credibility standpoint? Like, what's the first thing you look at, besides like how terrible the pitch normally is, I'm sure, but what gives a carrier or a brokerage or a transportation company credibility in your eyes?
Yeah, so over the past few years, I've built a lot of relationships with a few different key carriers that I've carried business to business, which has been awesome. And so when I came here and Neha was like, I have another one I want you to meet. It's like friends from my Coyote days, like go talk to them. I was like, oh gosh, another carrier. Like, I'm sure it's going to be the exact same pitch kind of thing. And like, what's going to set them apart. But had a great conversation with you, Rich. And I was like, I'll give you guys a try. We'll see. And, my thing is, I know mistakes are always going to happen. It's transportation. There's things you guys can't control, or anybody can't control, but what can be controlled is communication. And so, I think that's always, if your pitch is good enough, I might give you a try. Make sure your rates are good, but communication is always something that's like my biggest non-negotiable when it comes to carriers and who I'm going to use in my network. Because again, you can't control whether a driver gets stuck in traffic for 2 hours, but you can control letting me know prior to missing a delivery or something like that. Or handling issues so I don't even have to know about them. It's even better. So I think that's what's really sets carriers apart in my book.
For the record, I knew she hadn't talked to Rob yet, but I knew when she did, it was in. So I wanted her to make the decision. So, but I knew it was all strategic.
I have to give Rob plenty of credit as like maybe the most likable person I've ever met. Like if there's
Oh,
if
he's my
Rob doesn't
favorite.
charm your socks
I
off,
tell Neha very often that Rob is just so happy and everything's no problem, Macy. I'll get
He's the
right on
nicest
it.
person in the world. I don't know how anyone is that nice. I truly don't understand it.
Yeah, he just got I'm really terrible at checking our corporate mail. I just found a nice letter. So he works with Move for Hunger, which donates pallets or just donates products. So if you had like used or leftover product that was rejected but it's usable, Move for Hunger will like find the companies that have it and then ship it to food banks. And so we'll do shipments for them. And he got like a nice letter from, I want to say like a Missouri Catholic church group that runs like a food bank. And I just like sent it to him. And, he's the kind of guy that like when he meets people, kind of has this way of kind of shine about him and just creating really good, quick relationships. But you won't find a better guy. And we're pretty blessed to have him on the team.
I knew it.
No, I told him he's never allowed to give up the BERO account. I said, no matter what your role ever becomes, you must still do freight as long as I am here.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because Rich and I talk about how we can do things different than what we had like structured before. And part of what we're doing is very much Coyote, but another part is like we really want to drive that same experience you're talking about, no matter how big we are, is try to have like that same boutique small feel where like the same people are touching your freight, even when we have to give people opportunity for like leadership or moving up, right? And so that's really what we're focused on right now is trying to keep that
It's really
experience.
unique because you don't see that. And I think that's actually really key in freight is you constantly see these, this role changes a lot. It's a hard role. Obviously, we know that. So I think being able to have that would be a really unique model. I guess on that note, question for you guys is how have you guys scaled? Because I know like Rich, I might have been one of the first calls or first conversations I know as you were kind of thinking about this and building it. And I was like, oh, that would be cool if we could make this work. But you've obviously grown substantially since then. And it's also been just a year. So what have you guys done and how have you built your clientele and found shippers, et cetera?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Macy brought it up. Like you couldn't have phrased that a little any better from our eyes because I do feel like the proactive communication piece, like it's such a simple thing, but we haven't lost any customers because they appreciate that. And we have like an internal rule that every email should have a reply within 15 minutes. If you don't have an answer, just tell them I'm working on it. Because from the other end, you're always wondering like, do they even get this? So little things like that do help. We've had a very great relationship with our first investor and like to say that he hasn't played an instrumental role in helping us get over some very difficult growing pains would be like understating it. But I think we've hired good people in who are experienced. They bring ROI a little bit faster. I think the way that we've approached like cross-border Mexico is unique and how, a big chunk of our team is down in Guadalajara and they're extremely talented. And so, yeah, I think part of it is, and maybe Brian has some other things he'd like to add, but I mean, is the experience that we hope to give our customers. Like we've been able to scale with like pretty fast with most of them when we get in the door and just bringing like good people. Like, Rob was one of the first people I thought of and Brian was kind of took a, if you think he'd be good at that, then I trust you because Rob never had an outside sales background. I mean, he was in carrier his whole time at Coyote, but I was like, man, I've heard him on calls with customers. I think he would be really good at this. It's building relationships, right? I don't know anyone who's better than that because he's very genuine. And just trying to find more people like that, I think it represents the company the right way. And if it isn't that, then we try to pivot quickly. I don't know if there's anything you would add, Brian.
I mean, Neha, you mentioned it, and just a similarity between what you all have done and we have done too is building the infrastructure. So we put money down up front to have the right technology and tools for our guys right away, and we like got the initial first team, got off the ground, and then there was a ton of pressure to execute at that point. It's like, okay, here are your goals. You need to hit these now because you've already spent this much money. I wonder if that's similar to what you guys went through. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So we did that to ourselves, but it worked out and we bet on ourselves and the people we had, but having the tools behind us to make our lives easier and make things quicker. I mean, as you know, it's scalable, right?
100%. I think that's key, and it's really rare to be able to like be in a place where you have the funds up front. I think for us that was really unique. This is the first startup I've been at where we've been backed with funds that allowed us to do that. So even when I was like interviewing, I said, listen, here's the things we need to do to build this right. And I want to make sure we can do that. And I think very similar, it sounds like to what you guys have done. If you can do that, then you really can prove out the results. Versus kind of flailing to get there, it becomes so much harder and takes that much longer.
Having said that, I feel like you always have to, like, there's pivot points where you kind of say, okay, then maybe not that, but this. Like, can you walk us through some of those moments you both faced?
Oh, geez. I think one of the most notable pivot points for me was that we were, on the last seconds of signing a deal, and we pulled back for our manufacturer and found a different one and just trusted our gut. And I think it's always hard to know if your gut is right, but I think it'll always lead you. And we made the best decision by doing that. And we have a great partnership. But talk about pivot. I mean, I was like this close to signing that deal when we decided to totally flip it on its head. So I think that's probably the most notable, I think, pivot for us. I think we've had multiple smaller ones around kind of our systems and our processes and what we do, and even formulas, and changing the product, tasting it, doing multiple innovations. I mean, they all go to Tom. The first couple ones went there and he was like, ew, this isn't it. And there was a moment where we were like, oh gosh, are we, is this the right thing? Like, are we just totally off base? And you kind of have to refine that ground, and we did it, and finally obviously got some amazing product. So I think there's always pivots. That was probably our largest pivot. I don't know, Macy, if you have anything else to add or anything you can think of as well.
No, I think you got it pretty well covered. I mean, that's definitely our biggest one. But like you said, we've had smaller ones, but our manufacturer is how we.
Sorry, I think I'm getting a little lag on my end, guys. I apologize if I'm speaking over anyone. My internet is spotty today, but it's funny how you mentioned the role that like intuition can play a little bit. I don't know what it is, but there's been a few times us too. They're like, it's we're trying to make a decision on multiple things, and we're like, something about this doesn't feel like the right move, and we've just decided to go elsewhere with different partners and different people that we've interviewed. And it's just funny how that it plays
it's really weird because you're so trained to make decisions based on facts and data, and I think that is right 99% of the time, but like your gut really rarely ever fails you. And so I think that if I were to take one thing away, I think that's probably it, is like trust your gut, even in business, because it's usually right. And I think we've proven that over and over again with certain decisions that we've made over the course of this time.
I was going to ask, like, what's that formula that creates what gut is? You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be past experiences, probably people you learn from. I don't know what else you'd throw into that mixture, but
I think that's right. It's funny. Our brewmaster kept being like, he's like, I don't know. And, finally I was like, hey, he said that like 6 times. I think we have to just trust it. I think that's the reality. And we did. And it was it was the right thing. But I think you're right. I think it's past experience, what you've learned from, what you've seen, and just kind of how you feel, which is not really the facts and data, but sometimes that's what it takes.
I said, well, your gut took you away from brokerage, and I just wanted to hit rewind a little for a second, and just we did have a little overlap where I was lucky enough to meet you, and Rob, you and I had some fun photos from way back in the day when we were looking. I still think we look great, but we were definitely a little younger there. Why did you decide to leave the brokerage space and head to greener pastures on the shipper side?
I don't know if it's greener. You were my Cali friend. Yeah, it's funny. It was a short stint. I learned a lot. Obviously, we learned so much. Coyote really puts you through boot camp, and then you really kind of get in there. And I loved it. I think, I came from like this military company and military background, and I walked into Coyote day one. There's like all these people my age. They're drinking beer on Fridays. Everyone's wearing like neon green clothing. I was wearing like business attire every day. I was like, this place, wild. And it was really fun. I think, honestly, I kind of missed more structure. And I didn't realize that, we're so young. We're trying to navigate our careers. I think, being on the phone all day, every day for me was very different than what I had come from. And so, it's funny looking back, I think it was probably the most valuable 6 months of my career because I think it's such an integral part of supply chain. And had I not been there and sat at that desk and understood the challenges and what it took and like what freight looks like and what those mistakes are, like Macy mentioned, and all those things, I don't think I would have a true understanding of like end of end mile supply chain, if you will. So retrospect, it was a really great 6 months. I think I was just ready for something different. And then I got lucky. Landed my dream job at Starbucks. I'd always wanted to work at Starbucks. So when that came, it was like, I gotta take it. I gotta try it at least. So yeah, but those were fun, those days.
They were, and I was bummed when you left. Obviously, it's a testament really to, I don't know, a lot of that all these years later we had 6 months of overlap, and we're still in touch and working together, and the friendship's still there. But when you left for Seattle, I'd never been out there, and I was like, man, it's a bummer. Like, why would you leave Chicago? And like, I just recently got out to Seattle for the first time last year, and I get it. I get it. Like, what an awesome city. So, yeah, absolutely loved it. And, Starbucks, pretty awesome company. So I'm sure that was a fun time, but
It was cool. I mean, obviously, I missed the crew. And I think, I don't know, Brian, if you did this as well, but those training pods, I mean, you're with these people for 12 hours a day. And then after you're like memorizing state capitals and like big cities. And, so we spent a lot of time together, which I think was so cool. And I'm so glad that some of the friendships have lasted this. I mean, it's been almost 15 years at this point.
I
Um,
know. I still remember that the three-letter code for Bethlehem, PA is BTH, and there's a bunch of other ones in there that I could type in to the bazooka system and populate the city pretty quick. So yeah, all of that for sure. I actually really enjoyed. We did LTL visits, and then occasionally I think I did one shipper visit early on. We got to see like a manufacturing plant. It's actually the favorite part of one of the favorite parts of the job now is when we go visit customers and see their manufacturing or their facilities. I think that stuff is valuable. It's like people in brokerage don't get to truly understand like the business, what happens behind the scene, and the more they can understand that, I feel like the better they're going to be at their job. I mean, wouldn't you both agree that they should be taking a look behind the scenes a little bit?
it's 100%, it's unique because it's not built that way. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Macy, Rob came out and saw our facility.
He did. He stopped by and had a beer with Prost. And I got to meet them and got to meet that team. And it's so important because when you need appointments and you need a favor because a driver's running late or running early, I always think that the face-to-face meetings go so far.
yeah, we've been lucky. No, sorry, I keep again the lag. I said we at our stage, I think the one thing we've been excited about, the larger we've gotten, at least had like a little room for a little bit more, is the travel piece. And like, we owe you guys a visit down to Atlanta. I know that. And if it wasn't for this wedding, that I'm very excited about, by the way, but I should mention I'm getting married this week, so it's been a little hectic, but we're gonna get down there soon. It's just like getting in front of people and spending time together and breaking bread. I'm very glad that Ryan and Rob were able to meet with you guys in California and spend some time together. And Brian and I are well overdue. But that stuff is so much fun. That's how you build some stories together, and it really builds a bond, and it's obviously fun too.
I'm actually laughing because we're getting a Potbelly's in Atlanta for the first time, and the only time I've ever been is when we would go like every day for lunch. And I was like, oh my God, Potbelly's is coming. So maybe we'll have to do a redo.
Go back to just the importance of being in person when we met when we were out at Expo West in March. The conversation's great. It's great to meet the team in person and just be able to put an actual face to the name versus just like a Teams call or something, or talking on the phone with Rob all the time. But the conversation that came out of it, and then what you guys have been able to do with it, of talking about just how we have more partial loads than what we had originally thought, and how Rob then took that information, came back, and has built out a stronger partial network out of Denver, which is where we're shipping out of primarily. And so we've been able to see cost savings from that, and then in return you all have been able to receive more loads out of it. So something that might not have come up as easily on just an email, but it's those face-to-face meetings that I think are just so important.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I encourage all of our salespeople, like, get on the phone, talk to people, constantly ask what's going on, what you're working on, what do you need help with, or what's changing the business. Because I mean, you're both talking through what Bureau's been going through. It's clear how much has changed on the business side for you, and you're both so busy too. I mean, sometimes an email is not going to be the best way to communicate that, and picking up the phone or meeting with someone face to face. I mean, the business constantly changes, and it's our job to let you know we're here to help, and hopefully figure out a solution for that next problem.
On a totally different note, what are you guys doing in terms of like technology? Because I feel like there's so much changing and happening, and like things with like how trucks are being tracked, and how is that all integrating? And do you guys see that being a huge vital part in owning new business, or is it more really kind of old school, like keep the right relationships on the right carriers and the technology isn't as key?
I think we're trying to hit the sweet spot here. We've we've definitely implemented a lot of tech, like Brian had mentioned, some of the platforms, but yeah, I don't think you can discount what AI can probably bring to the industry and like society as a whole. It's coming, and it is very advanced and able to take some of the like monotonous work off your plate. So we have partnered with Augment, who's like an agentic AI platform within the industry, and some of the stuff that is behind the scenes more that allows our guys to be freed up. Whether it's like load building or keeping an eye on tracking or things like that. That allows the people that we have who we've hired on to be more judgment and reflecting like what the company's about, to spend more time doing that. And so I think that we still want the customer facing stuff to be very much relationship driven, but we have invested in some of the automation piece that I think any responsible company at this stage it probably is looking into, so that you can scale more effectively. But I don't know if there's anything else you would want to add, Brian.
Um, we're just seeing so much consolidation on the tech side of things, which I think is good for us as a broker. I just feel like the relationship piece is just so key. You have to kind of keep doing the old school things, which are like picking up the phone and talking and communicating. But downstream, I think our customers are really, being able to get a better product, hopefully, from us, because we have like better carrier compliance with highway and gen logs and capacity sourcing. And then the AI stuff is going to touch more of our shipments to take out maybe some manual error and get answers quicker. I mean, the GPS tracking, we use MacroPoint, that's all integrated. We can find out in real time where a driver is. I remember having to used to, like, I don't know, tell a customer I'll be right back with them, then go talk to an ops rep or a carrier rep, and then they go have to call somebody, then relay it back. And it's just like 45 minutes later, we got an answer. I mean, it's got to be quicker than that, right? So I think it's helped. But on this kind of similar topic, because I had a question for you all, because I think it's similar too. And on your side of the business, like, where do you see the tech changing? Like, you've got all these ERP systems, and so many of them are vastly different, and some of them are very old. And then you've got like TMS platforms, and there's like all this communication going between those and your carriers. I mean, do you see that changing soon? And I'm just like curious what your thoughts are on kind of the tech space on more the shipper side.
I can start, and Macy, you can tag in here. I think that's one thing that we did right, I will say, is because we launched NetSuite. It is an older but very sophisticated ERP that is going nowhere. They are best in class for what they do, especially for food and beverage. And I think the one unique thing, and the reason why I felt so strongly that we needed to use NetSuite, is because that they have integrations across the board with so many different platforms, and they have a lot of optionality there. So what I found was, like, we have this robust ERP system, but then we're able to go and partner with some of these newer innovative, whether it's a TMS or whether it's something else, an EDI platform or et cetera, we're able to partner, and it's an easy integration in instead of having to build these unique integrations every single time. So it allows us to really be able to be front end with some of the other apps that are out there, but also have this really strong sound infrastructure that's proven to work for years and years, and that's best in its class. And so an example of that is Allery, our TMS. They're kind of new and up and coming. I think they're very innovative. I really like them. They take all of our feedback. Macy can talk a little bit more about the details, but their platform is pretty seamless, and they was able to integrate with NetSuite pretty quickly. And so I think we were already thinking that way of like, how do we be tech forward with such a foundational system that'll allow us to kind of plug and play in that sense. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Mace, but kind of specifically around Allery, maybe.
No, I mean, I think you covered it well, but then what Brian was saying about just like reducing redundancies and then timeliness, like our orders, we input them into NetSuite and then it flows through into Allery. So then we're not having to go double key the order and the extra chance of making a mistake or emailing to 4 or 5 different brokers to get a price for something. And then you guys are integrated. So we're getting back LTL rates immediately. And then Rob's responding within like 5 minutes because he's very quick at it. But like, it's great to just be able to have then the history of what everybody quoted at one time, and to be able to make those quick decisions. And again, it's just reducing the manual touches.
And I think as we scale, what will be really cool is once we have a little bit better of an understanding around our lanes and the consistency, we can say like, hey, let's start to contract these lanes. And then it's not even a quoting conversation. It's a seamless, let's take action. It flows through, it goes through, and and there's no touch there. And I think that's like ultimately what I'd like to get to when we get to a little bit more consistency around who's ordering when and what those lanes look like and the types of orders they are.
Yeah, and what's kind of on that note with the growth? What's the kind of I guess the next couple of years look like in your mind? I mean, assuming everything kind of goes to plan, which it seems like it is, because you guys are really taking off and the brand's huge already.
Well, the plan and the hope is that we continue to scale pretty rapidly. Our goal is to double next year and then so on and so forth. I think, we're really trying to be a household name, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. Athletic did a great job paving the way, and they're very specific for a certain category. And I think we feel like there's a product market fit for us to be a little bit different. We want to show up in bars and restaurants and hotels across the world. We want to be at everyone's holiday parties. We want to be at everyone's dinner parties. We want to be at the table. And so I think, the next few years for us are really diving deep, generating velocities at our retailers, getting into retail across the country. We have a lot coming up in the pipeline around where it'll be, what retailers, how you'll see it. Target's been a huge partner of ours. NCAP's at Target. We have a really exciting launch coming up in a few weeks here at Target, which will be fun, a fun collab, doing some major events at Wimbledon next year. BERO also just launched their first annual padel tournament, so we'll do that every year, which we're really excited about. Tom's huge into padel, and it's been really cool to kind of bring that to life alongside tennis and golf, and so we're going to have a lot there. And yeah, there's a lot of excitement over the next couple of years. I think we're really building that pipe. And our hope is that really everyone gets an opportunity to enjoy BERO, whether it's solely BERO, whether it's balance and you're having a glass of wine in a BERO, whether it's at your holidays or where it may be. So we're excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome because I think you guys have done an amazing job with the marketing too. It's a very classy looking brand, and I mean I did make sure I got my hat back here. No, it's very well done. It's been awesome to see it continue to grow, and we're excited to be part of it. But yeah, there's like this obviously this big movement against not against alcohol fully, but less and less people are drinking, right? Because it's obviously not great for you. To be able to have that alternative where you still feel like you're social, and like you said, even sometimes you're just mixing it through because you want less of a hangover, less of those symptoms. It's just such an awesome like movement that everyone's moving towards. And I always have a 6-pack in my fridge, so you guys have done well. It's delicious. I'll give it that.
I want to touch on the the retail distribution part for just a quick second, because you mentioned that and you're working with Target. Our perspective is really just kind of through the lens of, scheduling and working with these big distributors and big retail, chains. But I just want to try to get behind the scenes from your perspective a little bit. What's that like, working with these really large and colossal retail chains and their distributor partners, for whatever you want to share on that? Because I've heard some stories, some good and some bad, and some frustration. And we work with a couple of smaller shippers that have to work with some of those bigger companies, and it can be a headache for them sometimes.
Macy, I'll let you take this one. This is your world.
Yeah, I think there can always be a headache, but I think what's been really great is all of our carrier partners take on probably a lot more of the headache than what I have to deal with, which is really nice. But yeah, so we're going through distributors for everything. So not going direct into a retailer, which is nice. But yeah, there's always headaches. And as Neha kind of alluded to, we have a lot of different distributors that we're going into. And so that adds in some additional complexity. But Neha, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think in our past life, we learned a lot about going direct into retailers. And I think what's unique about BERO is we do get the opportunity to work through distributors versus direct to retailers. I think the challenge across the board for everyone, whether you're a shipper or a carrier, is the unique requirements every retailer has. And I think that's what's challenging, is like whether it's a different system that they have to use, how things have to be set up, what the appointments, all of that. And I think for everyone, it adds so much more complexity going direct. And so our hope and strategy for BERO is to avoid doing that, to make it easier across the whole entire supply chain network, and really try and leverage our DSD partners as much as we can, and deliver to them. And that's where really the relationship building can happen, and really support kind of that long-term scale. So yeah, retail has been an interesting challenge. We're in a unique position at BERO, but I think Macy and I have seen kind of both sides of it, and really feel for the shippers that have to ship directly into retail, because it's hard.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your guys' faith in us, and Neha obviously giving us a shot, and Macy, really giving us a shot after that first combo we had. Thought it went well, but no, it's been really fruitful for us as well, and obviously great to be able to work with a friend. And thank you guys, and thanks for coming on today too. We definitely want to be respectful of your time, because we're running up to almost 50 minutes now, but appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you a ton.
Absolutely. This is so fun. It's been really, really awesome to see what you guys have been doing, and obviously very cool for me to think about where we were so many years ago and now what we're doing. So congrats on what you guys have built. We're excited to be a part of it as well, and can't wait to see both of these rocket ships fly in the next couple of years.
Yes, ma'am. I agree. But appreciate you guys.
Hey, ramp up, never hit the brakes. Break it down day to day, show the people what it takes. Ramp up, ramp up.